So Fraser, we're back on the mezzanine level as we draw to the close of our tour, and we're in front of a relatively new concept for Heathrow, Reserve and Collect. Maybe just tell us a bit about this, and beyond that, where your digital program is going in the commercial sense.
Yeah, well, first off, hope you've enjoyed the little walk we've had, and it is good to bring us to this because we see this as one version of the future, and I'd say one because the shops will be here, but in conjunction with them, as I said as we were walking around, space is going to become an ever increasing problem as the passenger numbers grow, as we would plan this year and hope for future years. With the terminal capacity being kind of fixed, we're going to have to be more and more efficient, and I've mentioned that many times as we've gone round about our productivity. One way we think we can unlock that productivity is doing things like Reserve and Collect. So I often talk, and you hear me talk at conferences, about digital, experience, space and offer. And we've walked around the physical experience today. You've seen how we're changing some of the space. You see how we're changing some of the offers. But the digital element of that, we haven't quite landed yet. So this is, I would say, kind of early pilot. And what you see behind me, I could have equally shown you in Terminal 5, and you'll see coming in Terminal 3 and Terminal 4 this year. And it's a collection point, really.
Yep.
So for people that know in the UK the Argos brand, that kind of idea of being able to shop online and collect something. Now, the idea of click and collect around the world has become quite a familiar piece of language. We're not quite at that stage yet. So this is Reserve and Collect. So you can go on right now to heathrow.com. You can put in your flight. You can say you're going from T2 on Aer Lingus back to Dublin. It will recognise that you're going in the next couple of hours, and it will only show you products that are available in that fulfilment time frame.
Okay. Yeah.
One of the challenges on e-commerce from a domestic point of view is fulfilment, the cost of that DPD delivery or that Federal Express truck. What we can do here for brands is take their stock in to a back of house space. We've got a little bit of back of house space, either back here or downstairs. And what we can then do is, if you order, the two ladies behind us here in the store will get that order in real time on a tablet, go and get you the item, bring it here. And unlike traditional domestic e-commerce, you can touch it and feel it. You can try it on. If it's a piece of clothing, we've actually got a couple of fitting rooms here. So you get the benefit of real physical retail with the range and stock of e-commerce. So what we're trying to do is see how consumers are reacting. But as I say, we're not quite there yet because it's Reserve and Collect, not Click and Collect.
Yep.
So my colleagues are working on the IT upgrades to make sure that you can pay. And there's a whole lot of complicated things behind it around multiple retailers, multiple merchants.
Yep.
How do we divvy the money up, the tax implications and things. So it's quite complicated. But we do believe that this is one version of the future for travel retail where you can have multiple brands with a very, very small shop front and that digital footprint for the passenger.
Yeah, and just in terms of the wider picture for example, e-commerce, which obviously many airports have invested in,
Yep.
and mixed results, I think we could say, as an industry. Yep. Overall. What do you see as sort of the 3 to 5 year plan in terms of what it can become as part of your business, perhaps?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I tell to my colleagues internally, actually. And I've got the grey hair to say I've been around a wee bit now. And I actually started my airport career in airport e-commerce because I started work in our car parking business. And our car parking business, like most airports, is an e-commerce business.
Yeah.
And I think many airport operators kind of almost forget that when they say, oh, well, we don't know how to do e-commerce. Most big airport operators do know how to do e-commerce, either directly or through a car park operator. So it's translating that e-commerce knowledge from car parking. And in Heathrow, we also have our Heathrow Express business where we have e-commerce knowledge, and it's bringing it to retail. But it is more complicated because we are not the brand,
yeah.
which is the distinct part. And getting that right and transitioning the knowledge from parking into the retail bit where you're not the brand is the tricky bit. So the first thing is airports do have some knowledge, so they can go on that journey. And I think the next part to think about then is consumers. Consumers have engaged in e-commerce. They are on your website if you're an airport. The hits on heathrow.com are there. And what we saw in the pandemic, and I think this is one of the changes that has happened, is consumers are engaging with airport and airlines electronically much more in all parts of the journey. And what we're seeing is that they are starting to engage more in our retail pages. So yes, they were hitting the website always to say, is my flight on time, which terminal does it go from, etc. The hygiene factor bits of the website, you can argue. But what we saw post-pandemic is they are engaging on, tell me what shops there are, tell me what food and beverage there are. And if you've got that dwell, that digital dwell rather, we all almost obsess about physical dwell, but if you've got that digital dwell, then airports and brands and retailers need to monetize that. And by putting in the right digital offer, you can start to do that, or we think we can. We've not proved it yet, Dermot. We'll see what happens. Come back in 3 and 5 years. But that 3 and 5 year vision, as it were, is to take that digital dwell and try to monetize it for the benefit of the airport, but clearly for the brands and the retailers as well.
Okay. So look, as we wrap up, key messages, I suppose, beginning of 2024, we're here relatively early January, things ramping up, things changing as you've advised us as we walked around. Key messages around how you see 2024 panning out, the opportunities, and perhaps some of the big picture themes that will influence how retail trades at Heathrow over the next few years, not just digital, of course, but of course that physical element too.
Yeah. Let me do that in 2 stages. One is a very specific UK message, which you've heard me talk about, which is VAT. We have to get the VAT rules changed, and we have to go back to an internationally competitive VAT-free scheme at ports and airports in the UK and a high street scheme. And I know that's a very parochial, very specific thing, but that has to be. And for those brand partners and retailers who've been fantastically supportive of that, we need them to continue to do that. And as I say, we've got this key now next decision point in early March on the 6th when the finance minister talks. So that's one very specific thing. More generally, I think we're positive on traffic. So as I said, we'll have our biggest year ever. We'll welcome 81.4 million passengers as our forecast. So that's a great starting point for the ecosystem. We've got the footfall.
Yeah.
We anticipate the footfall is coming. But what we've got to then be careful about is how we present ourselves in both food and beverage and retail to passengers. And it's that traditional, 4 Ps mix of product, price, promotion and place. We've got to get all 4 parts of that right. And the way that we do it, and you've heard me talking about, is that relentless focus on the digital offer, the experience that we deliver in the terminal, how intelligently we use the space, and how we curate the offer correctly, so the right balance of mix. Those 4 retail pillars that we talked about and that the team talk about, they haven't changed. So my message to the industry is continue to engage with Heathrow, continue to engage with my team through that lens of digital experience, space and offer. We need you to be even more efficient than you were before, because with that constrained space and that need to make the space as efficient and as effective as possible, we need the best ranges, the best colleagues in store to deliver the best service if we're going to have the right economic outcomes for the retailers, for the brands and for the airport.
Okay, well, we wish you well on that journey, Fraser, over 2024, and thanks for welcoming us today.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank you. Cheers.